thoughts, makes. My name is Stephanie, and this channel is where I share with you my works in progress, finished projects, things I'm cooking up, books I'm reading, funny things my kids may say. My hope is that as you watch this episode and the previous episodes, that you find some inspiration along the way. We are at the end of May, year 2023, and I am coming to you from a beautiful sunny day in Minnesota, where I live with my husband and our 2 young children. Whew! May is a busy one. We end the school year a little bit into June. Not quite the middle of June, but a little bit into June. And so I feel like the end of the school year is always a little bit of this chaotic energy in a great way, because everybody's excited. We've got things that we have to do, but also it's just kind of a lot sometimes. So it has been about 3-ish weeks since I have had a chance to sit down and chat with you. Yeah, it's just been busy. I feel like some of it too is that, you know, the ground is thawed, and so we do a lot of gardening, and so there's, you know, a lot of cleanup to do. We have to clean up the garden, we have to get it ready, we have to plant things. There's like this window of time to get things into the ground so that they can do their thing. So that takes time, and just, you know, kids' activities and recitals and final year exhibition things. I don't know, whatever. There's just a lot of stuff. So things have been good busy on my end of things. And if you are new here, I don't necessarily have like a set schedule on when I upload to YouTube. I aim somewhere around every other week, but honestly, so much of it just depends on how life is going at the time, whether I feel like talking. I, in all honesty, wasn't sure I was going to make it this week, because there have been a lot of times where I'm in more settings where I have to be social, and as someone who is an introvert, I recharge when I'm by myself, and I am very protective of that time because I know I need it in order to be myself, in order to survive, in order to thrive, in order to parent my children. You know, I need that time to recharge. And so having more time taken where I need to be with people means less time to recharge. And so even though I am talking just, you know, essentially to myself at the time of recording, I'm still talking, and even that can take a lot of energy. And so, not to say that I don't want to be here. I do. I wouldn't do it if I didn't want to. Just saying that if my energy is a little bit different today, that may be why I'm not running from like as full of a cup, maybe. But yeah, I am happy to be here. I decided that I'm going to do it because I do have some things I would love to share with you, and I'm not sure if next week would be any easier to squeeze in the time. And then after next week, we run into June, and then we're really, you know, hustling to the end of the school year. And then once the kids are at home, you know, they have things scheduled throughout, you know, the summer, but that means I'm driving them around all over the place, and I'm not going to be recording a video like in the car while I'm waiting for them. So anyway, long-winded story. If you've been here a while, you know sometimes I can get a little long-winded. It's just how I am. Yeah, I'm here. It's been about 3-ish weeks. I can't promise when the next episode will be. I'm hoping to get another one in before the kids are out of school. And then for the summer, we'll just kind of see what happens. Maybe it'll be every 3 weeks. Maybe it'll be once a month. I have no idea. I do knit through the summer. I know some people sometimes, you know, slow down a little bit in the summer. Slow down's not the right word. Maybe just not knit as much, just because of different activities and other things going on. I do still knit through the summer, and so that wouldn't be the reason why I don't record. It just, yeah, just, we have to shift things around and priorities and stuff like that. Speaking of gardens, so our hyacinths are done. They were done several weeks ago, but I wasn't here to show you a bouquet. I feel like I'm a broken record by saying if you've been here before, but if you've been here before, my summer episodes tend to have a lot of flowers. I love to grow flowers. We grow vegetables as well. We have perennials and annuals as far as flowers go. And usually when I come on here, you'll see a different bouquet of flowers throughout the summer, and I just love it so much. I love growing flowers. And right now, it is tulip season. We are almost finishing up tulip season. Let me grab this beautiful bouquet back here to show you it up close. It makes me so happy. I love it so much. So one second. Here we are. Oh, aren't they gorgeous? So, our tulips usually get completely gobbled up by wildlife. So they never even get a chance to bloom because as soon as the leaves poke up, they get eaten by rabbits. So last fall, I decided I was going to plant more than 100 bulbs in an enclosed area where the rabbits could not get to. And I am so glad I did it because the blooms are incredible. My husband had bought some bulbs that were all different colors, different varieties, different heights, and I just planted them in rows by their type. And they have come out incredible. I mean, it's amazing when they don't get eaten, how beautiful they can be, right? There should have been some footage before this talking section where I show you a little glimpse of the garden. And recently these reddish ones have been coming up, these teeny little red ones. They look tiny compared to everything else. We have these double blooms where they have 2 layers of petals as well as these single ones. And the colors are incredible. I don't have any of the super dark purple ones in this particular bouquet. I wanted this one to be these lighter peachy pink and purple, white. The white ones are so cool. The inside has a little bit of pink, like the edges are kissed with pink and there's a little bit of green. I am so in love with this bouquet. It is so pretty. And we have had enough that we can cut a fresh bouquet for in the house once a week, or more than that, several bouquets actually. And we've gifted some to our neighbors, and I've brought some in to the teachers at school. And they're just so beautiful. So those bulbs will probably stay in that particular part, that particular raised garden bed. And we don't have to dig out the bulbs. They do fine over the winter. The dahlias, we're moving to a separate raised garden bed. I left one open for those. Those we do have to dig out because they can't survive the winter here. And that's really the only plant that I'll do that for. Otherwise, it's just way too much fuss for me. I like my perennials to just come back on their own. And having to dig things out and store them in a bin and all of that is just kind of annoying. Anyway, so these these tulips will be done in a couple of weeks, and then it'll be peony season. Peonies are my absolute favorite flowers. We planted a few new ones this year that probably won't bloom. We thinned out some from my parents' house, and theirs are different colors. I think there's white. I can't remember if there's yellow. There's like the pink ones. We have a lot of the pink ones and the darker pink ones, and I had bought some new ones last year that we'll see how they take, but they might not bloom this year. So, but yeah, we have several dozen peony plants, and they're my absolute favorite. So when I record next month, hopefully there will be some gorgeous peony blooms to share with you. So I should probably tell you how things are organized here. Usually I start with a vlog section that shows you some scenes from what's been happening in the last few weeks or from whenever I recorded last. Then we go into an intro where I talk about the weather, and now that it's growing season, garden updates. And did I even talk about the weather? I think I said it was sunny, but we have had beautiful weather. Lows in the 50s, highs in like the 70 to low 80s, maybe mid 80s. It's been absolutely beautiful. And we are gearing right into summer, so it has been awesome. We've been spending a lot of time outside. I would say I'm not so excited about the mosquitoes or the biting gnats. And we do have to worry about ticks here because we are surrounded by a lot of wooded areas, and yeah, those are no fun. So yes, we go into that, and then usually I go into finished projects, and then works in progress, and then an eats and reads section where we talk about books I've been reading, and things maybe I've baked or cooked and things like that that I've shown maybe in the vlog footage. And then if there's time, or if I've formed enough words to talk about like something tangibly, I have a food for thought section that I usually share something that's been on my mind, in my heart. Sometimes there's a little challenge for you should you choose to accept it. Now, since we're short on time, on my end. I don't know what it is like on your end, so I can't speak for you. But I may or may not get to a food for thought section. We're just gonna have to see and go with the flow. I don't know how my energy is going to be since I've had to talk a lot the last week or so. And yeah, we're just gonna kind of go with it. Today I have ice water, and that is going to keep me hydrated because being hydrated is very important and something that's very easy to forget. That's my PSA. All right, let's get started. I have 2 finished projects to share with you today. I almost had 3, but I think have a couple of hours left on that 3rd project before it is done, and I was just not going to rush it, so I may not even show it as a work in progress today to save myself from having to talk about it again and then talk about it again next time. First one is the one that I am wearing. I'm gonna stand up so that you can see the stripes. I think when I'm sitting down you can't see the stripes. So this is my coloring book tee. It is a pattern by Amy Sher. Their patterns are so thoughtfully written out to be not only size inclusive, but also shape inclusive, and they just fit really well. This particular pattern I tested for Amy, was it last summer? I think last summer, and I knit 2 versions of it. So this is my 3rd one. The pattern has different views, so you can select 3/4 length sleeve. You can definitely make it longer if you want to. I'm gonna take off my watch, it's kind of bothering me. Sometimes when it gets warm, I feel like my watch just doesn't feel super comfortable. Anyway, you can do short sleeves, 3/4 length sleeve. In the pattern, it is not written for long sleeve, like full length, but you can always do that if you want to. The pattern has options for striping on the body and on the sleeve. I decided to do several little modifications in mine, and I will tell you what that is. Let me pull up my notes here. So I started this project at the beginning of April, and I recently finished it. I knit the 2nd size. You know what? I need to pull up some numbers here. It isn't always super helpful just to say what size someone makes, because that doesn't tell me anything about how it fits on you, right? And so if I tell you, oh, I knit the 2nd size, but don't tell you anything else, I just don't find that information super useful. So I'm going to tell you something else. The sizes included, the smallest one is a 34-inch chest circumference. The largest one is a 66-inch chest circumference. And the second size is 38-inch chest circumference. So on me, that is approximately 6 inches of positive ease. And I find that a super comfortable ease, not range, ease point, ease number for me. I'm going to sit down now so that you can see my face. I've decided just from making several garments that I really like the ease range of like 4 to 6 inches. If I want even cozier, kind of that comfy big sweatshirt feel, 8, even 10 inches of positive ease, I'm okay with. But I think it just really depends on the fabric and how heavy or thick the sweater is. But about 6 inches, I feel actually pretty good about that, 4 to 6 inches. And part of that is because I know my body measurements. And I know that if I pick something based on the amount of ease a pattern recommends just for the chest circumference, and if that is going to be smaller than my hip circumference, that's not going to work for me. I don't like that. So oftentimes I end up looking at the number and then basing that off of my hip circumference if I know I'm going to knit a full-length sweater. Now, it doesn't always work out the best that way because you might end up with too much fabric on the top versus the bottom. You can always do A-line. I should stop saying you. I can always do A-line shaping if I want. So if I want it to be a little bit more fitted on the top part, but I don't want it hugging my hips, adding some spaced out increases along the body can create that A-line shape where the amount of ease on the top and the bottom are going to be a little more, not symmetrical, maybe a little more similar, so there's not like a ton of ease on one part and then like negative ease on the other part. Of course, if you want that look, you can do whatever you want. Just thinking out loud here on ways that you can make a sweater fit for whatever shape of body you are. This one is boxy, I would say boxy because there's the stitch count at body sleeve separation is the same as the stitch count in the hem. So that part is like a box, right? And because I picked a circumference that gives me about 6 inches of positive ease for the chest circumference, it gives me about 3 inches of positive ease in the hip circumference, which actually is very comfortable on me. So I'm gonna kind of turn to show you here. Okay, so that's on sizing. My modifications. In the pattern, it has you cast on for this neckline, but not do the ribbing yet. So you knit the whole thing and then you come back and pick up and do the ribbing. Personally for me, I think that's great if a sweater is heavier because then you have that extra cast on edge for stability and it doesn't pull or stretch out a neckline. This is a fingering weight sweater and it is not heavy at all. So personally, I just don't want to fuss with that. So I just cast on and did the neckline ribbing and then kept going. Another modification I did was I knit the size B overall, but I wanted my neckline to be slightly bigger than what the pattern has. The pattern has a very close fitting crew. I don't like super close fitting crews for warmer weather garments. Winter, great, but if it's summer or spring, I just don't want something super close to my neck. So I cast on the stitch count for a size C, and then when I was doing my increased section, I just increased to the size B instead of to the size C and then continued onwards. So that way my neckline doesn't go up as high. I find this super comfortable because my collarbone is right here and that's about where the cast on edge sits. I changed only the body length. I did one extra repeat. Oh, and I did all my stripes different colors because that's what I wanted to do. And so there's an extra repeat here of the stripe section, which makes it a little bit past high hip, which is what I like. I'm wearing high-waisted jeans. The button goes right up to my belly button or slightly below. And then when I raise my arm, the bottom hem of the sweater just goes to the top of my jeans. It doesn't go past that. So if you can imagine if that pattern repeat was not there, then it would go up a lot higher. And that just isn't what I wanted, so I made it longer. I changed the sleeves as well. I did not do the decreases as written. I don't like tight sleeves, especially in warm weather. I don't want tight sleeves. Not even like close to fitted. It's not negative, it isn't written for negative ease sleeves, but I didn't even want something like fitted. So I knit with no decreases until I got to about elbow. I think right about the elbow section, and then I did some decreases. I think, yeah. And then I did some sets of decreases until I got to the 3/4 length that I wanted. The pattern is written as a 3/4 length, but my arms are just longer, and I know that. And I always know I need to knit at least 2 inches longer if I want it to be where I want it to be. Does that make sense? If I want it. Anyway, because I can make my own garments, I can make them the way I want them to fit. So it has nothing to do with the pattern itself. It's knowing my body and knowing how I want my garments to fit and then making the adjustments to make it fit the way I want them to. And yeah, so then I did some decreases. And so this is considered 3/4 length on me. In the pattern, it would have ended like pretty much at the elbow-ish. So again, like 2 inches shorter. And I really like this length. I also feel like, because my arm bends, the elbow eats up some of the fabric. And so the sleeves usually end up having or needing to be knit slightly longer so that when I bend my arm, I'm not losing a ton of length in the sleeve. I think that's the best way I can do to explain it. The yarn I used, oh my goodness, I didn't even talk about that. I gave a disclaimer at the beginning of this video that my thought process may not be the clearest just with everything going on, so I apologize if I'm a little bit all over the place. The yarn I used is Purl Soho Linen Quill. It is a fingering weight yarn and it is 50% fine Highland wool, 35% alpaca, 15% linen at 437 or 439 yards. 439 yards for 100 grams. Here is the label. My main color is an oatmeal gray. Well, that's what it's called, oatmeal gray. And then my contrast colors, I have bright flamingo, and then that's like a neon fluorescent coral. Peony pink is a very soft pale pink. Pink pop is a fluorescent like highlighter pink. Poppy red or red poppy, I don't remember which way it goes, but it's an orangey vibrant red. And then I have peachy pink, which I don't really think is very pink. It's kind of like a neon melon color almost. These are all yarns that I've purchased in the last maybe 2 or 3 years, and I've used them in various things. So the contrast colors have all been in other projects before, at least once. I think they've all been at least one other project. And then this oatmeal gray, I started with 2 fresh hanks, skeins, 2 fresh things of yarn. The reason I'm waffling on that is because recently I was thinking what the difference between a skein and a hank is, and there is a difference, and I kind of feel like I've been saying it not correctly this whole time. I'm pretty sure when it's wound, like just twisted in that like twisty thing, it's a hank, not a skein. But everybody says it's a skein. If you know, maybe you're a yarn dyer, maybe you know the difference, comment below. I don't really know, but I feel like I've been saying it incorrectly this whole time. Anyway, the amount of yarn I ended up using was 195 grams of the main color, and then my contrast stripes each took about 4 grams. So if you have yarn remaining from maybe like half and half triangles wraps, other projects that you've been knitting with linen quill, or really any fingering weight yarn, because you don't have to make this in the linen quill yarn, I feel like you could make a really fun color story. And I wanted these pinks and reds together, and that's what I did. And I adore it. I love it. I love it a lot. Next finished project is a pair of socks. I knit these for our 4th grader. As soon as the yarn came in, she saw it on the table and said, "Mom, I love those colors. Can you knit me a pair of socks in that yarn?" And you know what? Of course I will. This is the Farmer's Daughter Fibers Sock Squad Sock Set color for the month of May. It is Queen Anne's lace, and I will pull down the calendar to show you because I don't believe I showed it last time because it was the very beginning of May, and I would have gotten my yarn already, I think. But I don't know if I had cast on yet. Oh, maybe I had. Well, anyway. The Farmer's Daughter Fibers Sock Squad has a annual calendar with the months on it for this year, and the theme is wildflowers, and as you know, I love flowers, and it's so much fun to see what the colorway ends up being. So this month is Queen Anne's lace, and they have their pollinator with it, so it's the carrot wasp. And here is an up close look at it. Hopefully it doesn't get blown out too much. And throughout the year, there are 3 bases that the sock sets come in. And this month's base it's called Rocky Mountain Pearls. It's 80% superwash, blue face Leicester, 20% nylon, 400 yards for 100 grams. And it is a very, I would say, hardy yarn. I feel like it wears really well. I've knit with this base before, and I feel like it's really good for hard wearing socks. The socks I knit are my own recipe. I don't write it up as a pattern. It's just a lot of work to write a pattern and have it tested and tech edited and all that stuff, so I don't do that. I have a recipe for it. I call these cuffs peekaboo cuffs because there's just this little bit of color that peeks through. It's a fold over cuff. So I start with the contrast color, and then I knit past the halfway point of what I want my total cuff to be, and then I cut, join the main color, and then knit that part. And I do have a tutorial for that here on my YouTube channel, and I will link to that if you are curious. And then I do a 3x1 or knit 3 purl 1 rib, and these I knit as shorter socks. And so I did 20 rounds for the leg, And then I did a shadow wrap heel, still in the main color. Denise of Earth Tones Girl has a wonderful tutorial for that, so I would check that out if you would like to. And then after that, I continue with the 3x1 rib on the top, and then stockinette on the bottom, and then I did a toe here. I knit them slightly longer than her foot length now because she'll probably not really wear them until September, and kids' feet grow really fast. So I did cast on 56 stitches, and my gauge on this yarn is 8 stitches per inch. I used US 1 2.25 millimeter needles, and I knit them on circular needles, and the only time I switch to magic loop or 32-inch cables is for the toes. Then I'll just split the stitches half and half and do those decreases and graft at the end. I used about 42 grams of the main color and about 7 grams of the contrast color to knit this, to knit these socks. And so with the remaining yarn, I could either knit another pair of socks, which I was thinking about, but instead I'm going to knit them into a hat. And I will share that probably next time. I don't know. We'll see. On to works in progress. Today I think we will talk about 2 works in progress. This next project is a test knit. I have not tested in maybe 6 months, maybe. I decided to take a step back from signing up, applying for test knits, because I just had other things that I wanted to do, other things that I didn't want to have a deadline for, and other projects that I wanted to make that would get pushed aside because of test knitting. Because even though it's volunteer, it is a commitment, and there is a deadline, and people are counting on you. And so you can't just be like, oh, I don't feel like making that, because you have to finish it. And I haven't really gotten to that point with anything. I didn't want to get to that point, basically, is what I mean. I didn't want to come to a point where I would resent myself for signing up for things. I like to stop before I get to those points because I know myself. And anyway, yes, that being said, I have an exciting test knit in here. This one is for designer Amy Scher, the same one who designed this coloring book Tea. And surprise, surprise, I am using Linen Quill by Purl Soho. I bought this yarn, I believe this year. No, I bought it last year. I bought it last year during one of their amazing sales. So this yarn does go on sale pretty often. I believe right now the retail price is $19 for 100 grams at full price. And it often goes on sale for 20% off, 15% off, 25% off. And I really enjoy working with this yarn. It is not for everybody. So when I say I really enjoy working with this yarn, it doesn't mean you have to enjoy working with this yarn. To each their own. There are so many different options out there. I never want anyone to feel like because I like something that you have to like something, because that's not why I'm here. The colorway I'm using is Lychee Pink, and it's this beautiful, earthy, heathered pink. So the linen doesn't take up dye the same way as animal fibers do, and so it gives this heathered appearance. And not only that, within the pink, I don't know how much it'll focus depending on how close I get, but within the pink there's kind of like a red undertone to it, maybe. Hopefully the capture of the color is okay. It's always hard to tell because, you know, there's like color correction, and then pink things turn greener and green things turn warmer, and I don't know. I'm not going to say a lot about this test because it is a test and I don't like to give away secrets. It is knit top down, it is a raglan, it is a V-neck. That's what I'm going to tell you. And fingering weight. So I have mine here. I have made great progress on it, and I have tried it on, and I really like the fit of it. And there are different views, like usual. And currently I am planning on the 3/4 length sleeve, full length, or high hip version. I guess we'll just see what happens. But that is the plan. And I really like how it is turning out. I have redone this neckline 4 times. This is the 4th time, and I'm really happy with it now. Some things need to be done more than once, and I feel like that's kind of a metaphor for life. Like, not everything is going to be exactly the way you want it the first go around, and that's okay. I mean, sometimes it's okay. Sometimes it feels like that's not okay. But with something that I can redo, that's in my control to make it be the way I want to be, I don't feel like we always have that opportunity in life. There are a lot of things that are not in our control. There are a lot of things that would have a lot more, how should I say it? Would have a lot more going against you than for you if you were to have to redo it again and again, right? And sometimes things just have different weights of benefit and consequence to them, I guess. I'm not trying to get like super philosophical or deep here. I'm just floaty thoughts, okay? Floaty thoughts. But with this, because I'm picking up from a cast on edge that's not live stitches, I can pull it out and redo it as much as I want to. I can just make it fit the way I want it to fit, and I'm really thankful for that opportunity to slow down and just make something be the way I want it to be while doing something I enjoy doing. I don't know if that is coming across the way I want it to come across, but all is to say that 4th time is a charm, and I really like how it is now, and I like how it fits, and I am excited to finish it so that I have it as part of my wardrobe. These light fingering weight pieces with the linen blend in there, I feel like are really comfortable. Now, take that with a grain of salt. If it's high humidity, 95 degrees, I am not wearing a sweater. I do not care if there's linen content in it or how lightweight and breezy it is. I'm just not going to. 50s, 60s, low 70s, I like it. I like it a lot. And if for those evenings when we're out listening to live music and it gets cooler in the evenings, I will have it packed in my bag because it wraps up really small and it's easy to throw on. Over a tank top. Ugh, so excited to have it. So my plan is to have it done, well anyway, I have to have it done before the end of June. And I think I am still on track. I usually for test knits, I will block out the times backwards, so from when the due date is. I give myself about a week for blocking the garment and taking photographs because weather or lighting may not always work out the way you want it to. I may not be in the mood to take pictures on one day, so I like to give myself a week of buffer, also in case something goes wrong. That way I have a week of buffer, and then I kind of work backwards from there, like how much time for the sleeves, how much time for the body, how much time for, the raglan, neck shaping, whatever part. So I kind of work backwards from there, and I'm on track. I'm just really excited about it. Next work in progress I would like to share with you is also one that I did not share last time. So last time I shared a finished ranunculus, and that pattern is by Midori Hirose, and that was my 3rd one last time, and I have cast on a 4th one. This pattern I know is super popular. A lot of people have made it. The original gauge is 14 stitches for 4 inches. So that is a very open gauge. It is not necessarily meant to be knit with like super bulky weight, although I suppose you could do that. I don't know if I've seen one like that yet. Could be kind of cool for the winter. Not cool, cozy, hot, warm. I wanted to knit another one at a different gauge. So because it's 14 stitches for 4 inches, there's a lot of room to play, and there are a lot of sizes to play with. Okay, looking at some notes here. There are 11 sizes for this pattern, and just to note, if you bought this pattern a while ago, it was redone. So it used to be a one size pattern that had, I don't remember what the finished circumference was, but the pattern was redone in the last couple of years, I can't remember when, to add on sizes so that you would have stitch counts for these various sizes. And I think some other things with fit were also addressed. So if you have an old pattern of it and you were like, I don't know, maybe see about the new revised version. I did not have the old version, so I can't tell you how it compares. I only purchased it after it was revised because it had more sizes included. Let's see here. So the bust circumference, finished bust circumference goes from a 46 inch to almost a 71 inch. And I have knit the size 1 and I have just played with the gauge to get it to fit how I want to. And this one, I changed the gauge from 14 stitches for 4 inches to 18 stitches. Now I did knit 2 gauge swatches, so here are my swatches. I knit them flat because honestly my gauge doesn't vary a lot between my knits and my purls. For some people, their purls are a lot looser. So then if you're knitting flat, your gauge will be pretty off from flat versus in the round. Yeah, I don't bother. If I'm doing color work or something else where I really need it in the round, I will do that, but not for this. So I do these little eyelets on top to tell me the US needle size. Basically, I'll do a yarn over and then knit 2 together. So this one is for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is for US 8. And then I'll have these little tags where I write on what the yarn is, the fiber content, my needles, the yardage for 100 grams, and, sorry, the tail was hiding it, and what my gauge is. So I also did one on a US 9. So here's that swatch. The US 9 was a little bit too gapey for me. And this yarn is 328 grams for 328 yards for 100 grams. It is Purl Soho's Santalina, and that base is 70% cotton, 20% bamboo, 10% hemp, and this colorway is green agave. It's this beautiful, kind of muted, dusty, sea foamy, maybe not sea foam. Green agave is the color. This particular yarn was sent to me from Purl Soho for yarn support for this project, and I have purchased this yarn before in the past. I knit actually one of my coloring book tees with the Santalina base, and I loved it. That one I knit on US 4s, so the gauge was very different from this. Now because of this gauge, I'm gonna have to figure out if I need to wear like a tank top or something else underneath it, like if I have to use it as a layering piece, or if I would be comfortable wearing it on its own. I'm not sure yet. I feel like my stockinette fabric would be okay, but I don't know if the eyelets are gonna block out bigger than I am comfortable wearing without like a tank top underneath. Time will tell for that. So you ready? Dun 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 dun! I have split for the sleeves. Let me try to extend this out a little bit so that it is easier to see. I have a stitch marker on here by Reshma of Hello Lavender. I'll share that with you up close. Reshma makes beautiful polymer clay charms and knitting notions. This one's part of her first affirmation collection. I think it was the first one because she's had another one come out. And it has flowers on it and it says I matter. And then on the front here I have a flower stitch marker, and this is by Yura of Knit Boop Studio. And I really like these kind of round clasps because they're multi-purpose. I can use them as progress keepers or stitch markers, and I really like that. And they have not been snagging any of my yarn. And here it is. I have the sleeves on short cables with stoppers right now, and I'm just working round and round in the body. I really like how it's coming out. The neckline I think I did a little bit different from the pattern. I did use the US 8 for the neckline as well. I did not do any sort of like tubular special cast on. I did an old Norwegian cast on, which is a stretchy long tail cast on. And then I just did the stitch counts as written, I believe. I did do more short rows in the back to raise it up more than what the pattern calls for. Also because my row gauge is also different, so I wanted to make sure I had enough length, height, I don't know what you call it, enough rows here. And then I omitted the front short row section because I don't want it to look more boat neck. So I want the front lower than the back, so I just didn't do the short row shaping in the front. And I love how it's looking. So if you omit that short row shaping in the front, after you're done with the back short rows, just go straight into the textured yoke instructions. I have steam blocked it a little bit, just because I wanted to make sure the fit was gonna be okay, and it's lovely. I really, really like it. I feel like the stitch definition isn't as pronounced on this one as my previous one. The previous one, the yarn was much rounder, which allows the texture to stick out more. And this yarn is not as round. I'm gonna try to hold it up. I'm not sure how well it'll focus on the yarn itself. It's got a nice twist to it, but it's definitely not as plump. And so the texture won't stick out the same. It is very drapey and very lightweight. My hands do not hurt knitting with this yarn. I would recommend that if your hands hurt knitting with yarns that have less give than wool, that you just take breaks more often. We are on to eats and reads. I have made some really good meals lately. I'm going to toot my own horn. Because we should be proud of the things we make, and that's just not limited to knitting or crocheting or sewing. I think it applies to cooking and baking and all sorts of things, right? We are making things to feed our souls, and I think that is really important. I made this orange poppy seed pull-apart bread from a new cookbook called 100 Morning Treats by Sarah something. I'm going to put an image of the cookbook here on the screen so you can see that, and I will probably follow that with pictures of the bread that I had made. Orange poppy seed pull-apart bread. Yes, it is as amazing as it sounds, and hopefully as it looks if there are photos here on the screen. It's like a cinnamon roll, but I don't want to compare it to a cinnamon roll because it's different. It's like a zesty cinnamon roll because it pulls apart, but it's not rolled. It's like in layers, and you bake it in a loaf pan, specifically a Pullman pan, bread pan, but I don't have one of those. I think those are higher than what I have. So I measured, and my loaf pan is like 9 by 3 by 3, and I think the Pullman is like a 9 by 4 by 3, 4 being the height or the depth. So I might need to go get one of those because I feel like with these breads that poof out over the top, stuff ends up leaking out the side because it doesn't have that height. And then it also makes it that like nice square loaf. Do you have a Pullman loaf pan? I've said that a few times and now it sounds weird. Anyway, if you have one and you think it is worth it, let me know. And if you have one and you don't think it's worth it, maybe don't let me know because I might be on the hunt for one at some point anyway, because I don't know, I think it could be worth it. My loaf pans seem to work just fine, but with some of these breads that really poof up over the sides and have fillings, the fillings sometimes end up spilling out and then I have to clean the oven. So anyway, another thing I've made recently, I tried this new recipe. It's like a Greek yogurt ranch dip, and I would put ranch in like quotes because it's not like you're using like a ranch seasoning packet. There's garlic powder, there's onion, there's, well, onion powder I think maybe, but I had like those dried onion flakes, which I think were really good in it. And Worcestershire sauce. I'll link to that recipe in the description box below this video. You know what? I just realized that I went through this whole video without letting anybody know that the links are below this video. If you've been here, you know that that's there. But if you haven't been here, then you don't know that it's there. Or maybe you do, and that would be fabulous. But the links are there. I'm so sorry. I feel like it's been more than 3 weeks, and so I just forget some things. But links to everything that I talk about, well, unless I forget something, will be in the box below this video. Sometimes you click on show more or an arrow. And for designers, makers, things like that, I try to just link specifically or directly to their website if they have one. And then you can go find all their social media stuff or whatever there. And then recipes, if there are online recipes, or if I used an online recipe, I can link to that. But if it's from a cookbook, I'll just say what cookbook it is from. I've made a lot of other things, but those are the two things that stick in my brain right now. Oh, for that dip, we've had it with vegetables, and it's so good with like crunchy, fresh, raw vegetables. And it's also really good with like pretzels or pretzel chips. So good. And I made smashed potatoes the other night. So you boil the potatoes first, then you smash them, and then you put them in the oven so they crisp. Oh, it's so good. That's also really good with the Greek yogurt dip. It's also really good with like a honey mustard vinaigrette dressing. And the weather has been so nice, so we've been eating outside. Even better, because the crumbs end up on the floor outside and not in the house that I have to clean up. So wonderful all around, and I think that's all the eats stuff, I think. So in the last 3-ish weeks, I have gone through about 7 books. Let's see how I get through them here. I won't elaborate super detail about them. 1, I'm running out of time. And 2, I'm kind of tired of hearing myself talk. The first book is a book that I was reading last time that I had finished soon after I finished publishing the video, I think. Bloodmarked by Tracy Deonn, and that book will be here on the screen so you can see the cover. You'll see the covers of all the books that I mention as I talk about them, just to give you a visual. I loved the book. It is book 2 of a trilogy, The Legendborn Cycle, and it's so good. It follows a 16-year-old, well, I think she turned 17 in this second book. And it follows her through her grief and through intergenerational trauma and her discovering herself and learning things about her family. There's magic, there's demons, there's this Arthurian legend hierarchy, and this incredible 16, 17-year-old black girl is like the focus of it all, and she is incredible. It's based in North Carolina, specifically Chapel Hill, and well, I guess in book 2 they go outside of that area. Anyway, highly recommend it. I loved it. There's a book 3 coming out, I believe not until 2024. I don't generally like to read newer books because then I have to wait if they're part of a series, but this is so worth it, so good. The books are pretty long, 500 plus pages, and I really enjoyed them. I thought the pacing was really good. I liked the action in it. I felt like the storylines were good. I was fully emotionally invested in all the characters. There's tons of side characters, so I would say if you don't like that, it might be harder to follow. I did have to write some of them down, look up terminology of things because I'm not super well versed in Arthurian legend. But I still loved it. I still really enjoyed it. I was so emotionally invested in all of these characters that I was like, no, through different points in the book and cheering and rooting different characters on. And yeah, I really liked it. Loved the book. Then I thought I would go to something a little less intense, maybe. And that is Solimar. I don't remember how to pronounce it right now. The Sword of Monarchs, and that book I will put here on the screen. It's like middle school aged fiction, fantasy, and I have to say that I didn't get very far in it. I actually didn't finish it. So I picked it up because I saw it at our kids' school book fair, and I thought, I read the back and I was like, oh, this looks pretty good. Or like the inside cover. And honestly, after such an intense book, Bloodmarked, that I read, this one just didn't pull me in. And I don't know if it's because I read it right after Bloodmarked, but I couldn't get into it. I didn't feel drawn in. I did not feel attached to the characters. I felt like it was going to be super predictable, that I knew exactly what was going to happen. And not gonna lie, I flipped to the end a little bit and like read the last chapter and I was like, yep, I thought that was gonna happen. So, needless to say, I feel like it's middle school. I felt like it was too predictable, not descriptive enough for what I was looking for. Not saying it's a bad book, it just wasn't the right fit for me at the time, maybe. Maybe if I read it at a different time following a different book, I would have felt differently about it, but yeah, I didn't finish it. I returned it to the library. Third book that I read. I guess the last one I didn't finish, but third book. Now this one's a little bit different from what I would usually read. I have had it recommended to me before, and I will put a disclaimer in that I don't think I'm a rom-com type of reader or a movie watcher. I actually don't watch very many movies, but rom-coms aren't even really in my preferred ones anyway. Oh, and for those that don't know, rom-com would be like a romantic comedy. So the book is To All the Boys I've Loved Before. It is a very popular series. I believe it got made into like a TV series or something. I don't really know. Author is Jenny Han, and it's a young adult romance, high school drama. I feel like it's really fluffy. I don't know how else to describe it. I personally thought the characters were kind of one-dimensional. I did not feel like there was any like real development of their characters for me to be emotionally invested. I just felt like they're like what it said was just what you got, which I guess, I mean, in a book, yes, what is written is what you get. But I just didn't feel like it pulled me in to like really care. You know, I'm like, okay, grow up. I don't know. I don't know. It wasn't, there were parts of it that were so eye-rolling and cringy to me that I couldn't get into it. It just not my cup of tea. Didn't like it. I don't think, did I finish the book? I think I skipped around. Return that to the library. Oh, I read The Duology by Kaylin, oh, why can't I remember anybody's last names? I'm sorry. Book will be here on the screen. The duology is This Poison Heart, followed by This Wicked Fate. So good. I really enjoyed these. It is YA, young adult fiction. I believe it also is classified as paranormal fiction. I think so. It also has stuff on grief, family, betrayal, family history, all things planty. So if you're into plants, I think this could be a really fun read for you. I loved it. It is based in Rhinebeck, New York. So for any of the makers here that go to Rhinebeck or New York Sheep and Wool Festival, you might find that really fun. Or if you live in New York, you might find that really fun. I've never been to Rhinebeck for anything, and I've not been to the New York Sheep and Wool Festival, but I thought that was kind of fun to have that kind of in there for any of the people who have gone. It's kind of cool. Loved it. It has some Greek mythology in there. Black girl magic is like the center focus. It's good. Really loved it. I really, really enjoyed the writing. I felt like it pulled me in. I cared about the characters. When there was betrayal, I was like, no, how could you? Some of it was a little predictable, but I liked the other plot twists that were in it as well, and so I liked it. I thought the character development was really good, and the world building, it takes place in like modern day, so not necessarily that part of the world building, but the world building in like, behind the scenes isn't the right word, but like, the world around this planty magic family thing is good. I like that. So after I read those two books, I had to pick up another one by the same author called Cinderella is Dead, which I think was published before the other two books. I enjoyed that one as well. I'm not sure if I enjoyed it as much as the duology, but they're both pretty high up there, or all three of them. I liked it. I think this one had good plot twists. Something I didn't like was the insta-love trope that was in there. Just didn't like that. I just didn't feel like there was enough development in that particular relationship that made it believable for me. And some parts in there just kind of happened quickly in succession that I felt like could have had more added to it, leading up to it or when it happened. And some things were just like, oh, that happened. Oh. Okay, so aside from that, I feel like if you like the idea of, how do I say things without ruining it. If you like the idea of going against what everybody else thinks is true or the ways things should be done, whether or not they like it or not, and somebody goes in and changes it all and decides that they're going to burn it down and build it back up again, you might like this one. So I liked the theme, I liked the plot twist, I liked the premise, idea. I liked it as a thing, like a whole package thing maybe is what I'm trying to get at, but there were parts in it that I was like, don't love that, or yeah, so that's my take on that one. And then the last book is Legend of Thorns, Midnight Tales and Dangerous Magic by Leigh Bardugo? I'm sorry, I'm not sure what is happening here. I remember the first name, don't remember the last names. It will be here on the screen so you can see that. It is an anthology, so a collection of 6 stories based on folklore, mythology, fairy tales, and I loved it. So good. It had these twists on like Grimm Brother fairy tales that not only saw the other side of things, but basically, you know how some fairy tales it's like very distinct good versus bad? Well, I like it when things kind of get mixed up a little bit because it's, I want to say more believable, even though the things that are happening are not necessarily like quote unquote real, because there's like all this, well, anyway. I like how it twists your sense of good and bad, or who's good versus evil, or things like that. I have not read other books by this author, but from what I've read, these folk tales are the basis for other books that this author has written. So I might go check those out from the library and see what I think, but I did like this collection of stories. Friends, we have made it through. I am not going to do a section called Food for Thought. We are just going to wrap it up. I feel like I have touched on, some things here and there throughout that maybe weren't as directly related to whatever project I was working on, but yes, definitely have been things that have been on my mind, and so they were kind of sprinkled throughout instead of organized into like a tangible paragraph at the end. So yeah, those nuggets are in there, but I am going to wrap things up and clean stuff up, and I hope you are doing really well. I hope you are taking good care of yourselves, your loved ones, and your neighbors, and cheers! Cheers to being creative, and I will talk to you next time. Take care.